What's up, college football fans? Happy Monday. My name is Phil, and I will be producing today's podcast on the Buckeye Scoop Radio Network, which includes a conversation with Ohio State insider Nevadabuck. We will be recapping a 54-10 Ohio State victory over Iowa, which impressed the voters and people probably not as intimately familiar with this Ohio State team. But I think this game certainly outlines some potential concerns as we head into this home stretch. So we will talk through all of that, as well as our thoughts on where Ohio State sits in the broader college football picture as the weather turns and we get ready for the home stretch on this college football season. So thank you so much for your support. Be sure to subscribe, visit BuckeyeScoop.com, create a login, check out the insights in the community there. Certainly engage in the conversation in the comments on these videos. We really appreciate your support. And happy Monday. Let's kick things off. Welcome to the Monday Morning Scoop. My name is Phil. I am producing today's conversation with Ohio State insider Nevadabuck, where we recap an exciting 54-10 victory over Iowa. Nevada, that's the most points that Kirk Ferentz has given up, and certainly not a score to scoff at. But it's been an interesting few days. The Ohio State community, the chatter, has not actually been overwhelmingly positive. There has been some discussion about some of the concerns, mostly on the offensive side of the ball. So let's start with the positives. The defense came to play. They forced 6 turnovers. Thoughts on Jim Knowles and this Ohio State defense as we get into the home stretch of this season?
Well, yeah, I think, look, first of all, I'm so excited about Jim Knowles. I think that the job that he's done has been nothing short of amazing. Yeah, I think the only thing that we got to keep a little bit of perspective is the quality of the offenses that we played up to this point have been really, really bad. And, that kind of goes for the entire Big Ten, but it goes for our non-conference opponents as well. This weekend against Penn State is going to be the first semi-competent offense that we're going to face. But, no, the defense has played great. I felt like every time that Iowa had the ball, the Ohio State defense was a threat to turn it over, to give us good field position, to actually cash in for points. So, no, all the credit in the world for them for putting out a kind of a coherent, competent unit out there and really doing some great things. And it's been fun to watch.
Yeah, I to be honest, I almost laughed at the first play that when they just threw it right to us as an interception. I'm like, oh, man, it's going to be a long day for that Iowa offense. So that was good to see. But I think one of the most exciting and promising parts of the day was Zach Harrison's play. We've been kind of waiting for him to break out. He's had some glimpses in the past. 2 tackles for a loss, sack, forced fumble. Great to see him break through. And is that something you think we can expect going forward, or was that sort of really tied to an Iowa offense that has pretty much struggled against every opponent they've played this year?
Well, I think Zach's a guy that, when you see him in the testing, I mean, he tests off the charts. He's a guy that's so physically gifted, a guy that can really do it all. And we've been waiting for him to put it together on the field. And I think we saw it this weekend, what he can do. Like you said, he had a pass knockdown. He had a forced fumble. He was impactful the entire time. So, no, I think we're going to expect to see more of it. And it's really a credit to Larry Johnson and Jim Knowles putting him in good spots. They've been moving around on the defensive line. And he's a problem. And you started to see a glimpse of it a couple of weeks ago, and now you're seeing more of it. So I expect to see more of him in the future, and it couldn't happen to a better kid, and really excited to see him play that way.
Yeah, we had talked about on this podcast, particularly the defensive ends were not getting home. We knew it was just a matter of time. What better medicine for that than playing Iowa, right? The defensive ends, JT and Sawyer, and of course Zach Harrison, all having a great day, getting to the quarterback, putting pressure there. So hopefully this is kind of that catalyst they needed to really push them to get those last few steps, bring the quarterback down. They will certainly need it when they go to Happy Valley to play Penn State. So that was exciting to see. So defensive performance, really hard to complain about too much. It was a pretty dominant performance across the board. Obviously that one touchdown, came through not from the defense. It was actually, flipped over from the offense and their mistake. So turning over to the offense, it's been really interesting looking at, particularly in the Buckeye Scoop community, some really great debate, healthy debate going on between fans talking about this Ohio State offense. We scored a lot of points, but there were certainly some areas where we struggled. I think you look at particularly the offensive line in the running game. You know, Ryan Day has preached toughness. That's sort of the theme of the year. And they really struggled to get going. I don't know if they got out-schemed, but your thoughts on the offensive line performance, the running game, and, of course, any long-term concerns there that you think that this team needs to address?
Well, I think the concerns that I have about the running game are all schematic. You know, I think when you break down, you start looking at the plays where it didn't work out, Ohio State was just outnumbered. You know, they'd be running, 8 guys against 6, or 7 guys against 9, or 5 guys against 7. And when you do that, you're going to have trouble running the ball. And, it was evidenced by the fact that Mayan Williams was only 1.9 yards a carry. And, we all know how hard Mayan runs. That was with a 13-yard run in there as well. So I think for the Ohio State offense, they've got to change some things schematically. Offensively, I think we've become a little predictable. I've been very vocal about how I feel like C.J. Stroud has got to present a viable constraint on these running plays, which he's not doing. And I think Ohio State's got to take what the defense gives them when they're given these 0 looks and they've got one-on-one on the outside. They can't be afraid to just throw it out there to their All-American wide receivers and not run into these mass fronts that they've been doing, with alarming frequency. So as much credit as Ryan Day has gotten for the offensive performance this year, I think he's got to take a hard look and change some things up as we come into the second half of the season and we play some of these more formidable teams, because we need to be better and Ryan Day needs to be better, and I think he will be.
Yeah, Trevian Henderson, 11 carries for 38 yards. Mayan, 10 for 19. It did feel like they were doing a lot of east-west running versus north-south. So like you underscored there, probably getting outnumbered and trying to find an opportunity to push forward. You kind of mentioned something which is a good segue into another hot topic on the message boards and in the Ohio State community. Are we at a point where we should just accept that CJ Stroud is not going to run the ball? I mean, there were some wide open lanes where he could have taken yards, but he's just so talented throwing the ball that I think he's content to, just kind of hang back and wait for anything because he can fling it. But it certainly seems like it would help if he took some of those running lanes from time to time. But is that something you expect to change, or are we at the point now where, it is what it is? It's probably not going to evolve over the last few weeks of the season.
I actually think that he'll run. I think he's gonna run at some times when maybe the defense least expects him to, and he's going to break some big plays for us because I know they practice it. I know they stress it. I know he's aware of it. I know he's aware of the criticisms. I know that they're aware of what that does for the offense when he does it. I just think that up until now, they've been keeping it under wraps. I really do believe that we'll see it down the stretch, and that maybe that's wishful thinking, but I know they practice it. And I know that it's not something that's lost on the Ohio State brain trust, and I'm confident they're going to pull it out at some point when the defense is thinking that they're going to lull him to sleep, and he's going to roll around the corner for a big first down or big touchdown, and we're all going to stand up and cheer and remember we talked about this.
Yeah, I think one school of thought is that, he's not running because he's saving himself from injury. But an interesting counter to that is that, again, we were pretty late in the fourth quarter. CJ was in there, and we were throwing the ball, trying to move it downfield. Do you feel like Ryan Day is still keeping him in a little bit long? I would love to see some of the backups, especially, McCord and Devin Brown get in there, actually throw the ball and not just hand it off a few times. But it seemed like Ryan Day was really pushing on this one. He wanted to keep, making a statement win by getting us down the field and having CJ continue to get reps throwing the football.
Yeah, well, it's been kind of the theme. As you look back in the games, he's been in there way too long. It's obvious that Day wants to have a Heisman winner, and that you guys know you have to do that. You have to put up the big numbers. You have to have the 4 touchdown passes. And, if anybody didn't watch the game, they saw 54-10. They saw Stroud with his big numbers and 4 touchdown passes. But they worked hard for that, and there's a price you pay for that. The backups are not getting in there. It feels like things are a little forced, a little contrived. But, that's kind of where we're at right now, is that, Day wants to get CJ Stroud the Heisman, and if that means that risking him a little bit late in the game, they're going to do it, even if I don't agree with it. But that's definitely happening.
So speaking of question marks, Jaxon Smith-Njigba, look, when he came out of the game, he looked hurt to me. You heard Ryan Day in his press conference talking about a pitch count, really not shedding any light on a potential injury. I've heard some rumors. For me, it would be hard for anyone to watch him coming off the field and not see the discomfort in his eyes. So I guess, what are your thoughts on JSN over the next few weeks? Do you think we're going to see him, or is this a player that you would just sit down? I mean, it seems like even if he feels okay, this might be the second time he's tweaked something coming off the injury. So I would save him for that Michigan game if he's ready to play. But then you also have some concerns, like every time he's in there, maybe they're trying to force the ball to him, whereas with this core group of 3 receivers who've been playing fantastic, they're kind of letting things come naturally and making CJ sort of analyze the defense and make the right play rather than just sort of force-fitting something into JSN. So going to be interesting to see how this plays out. Any thoughts there, and maybe what we can expect from him in the home stretch of the season?
Well, again, I think we've got to accept the fact that he's got a nagging injury, and they've cleared him now twice. He's come out of the games twice. Ryan's saying that it was just a pitch count and not an injury thing is not. I mean, we all know that that's not true. And now I think what they're trying to put out there through their voice is, it wasn't the hamstring, it's a knee, it's a different thing. And whether that's true or not, as everyone knows, if you're favoring your hamstring, sometimes your knee can get hurt, or everything's related. If there's one part of your body that's weakened, it can manifest itself in pain in another part of your body. So I think it's really irrelevant that where he's hurt right now. I think the point is he's been cleared twice now this season, come back and tweaked it in very short periods of time. So I think they're going to have to shut him down for an extended period of time and really find out what's going on, because they're clearly, they don't have a good handle on this. You hate to put timelines on when he'll be back or when he won't be back or what's going on with it, but it sure seems like the injury is, they've been thinking it's been mild. They've been thinking it's been day to day, but maybe it's a little bit more severe than that. Maybe they need to rest him a little bit longer, give him a chance to strengthen a little bit more before he comes back. Because he certainly, there's no question that our offense is better when he's out there. But, to your point, when he's in there for a few plays, maybe things get a little forced, a little, herky jerky. So I think best thing for Ohio State fans is don't expect to see him for a little bit. I haven't heard anything that would lead me to believe he's shut down for the year. But I think it's going to be a while before we see him again out in the field.
Yeah, there's been a lot of talk about sort of what happened to Nick Bosa and if that's what's going to go on with JSN. I think clearly he has demonstrated that is not his intention by trying to come back multiple times. The question is now, what is the right process to get him back for this final stretch, which hopefully includes a Big Ten championship game, the college football playoff. So we'll see how that plays out. But I think one of the positives, coming out of the wide receiver room, Julian Fleming really starting to emerge. He's kind of a touchdown machine. That was a great play to that big touchdown against Iowa. How are you feeling about the depth of the receiver room? Obviously, we got Marvin Harrison Jr. and Emeka Egbuka, but it seems like Julian Fleming is really establishing himself as that number 3 guy at this point.
Well, I think that's the issue. What we've got is we've got 3 really good ones. They're obviously with JSN on the sideline with the injury. After that, I'm not sure we have a lot of depth, but we sure do have 3 good ones to start off with. And Fleming, people forget he was the number 1 wide receiver in America coming out of high school and just battled through injury after injury since he's been at Ohio State. And as good as he's been, I still don't think we've even seen 60-70% of how good Julian Fleming's going to be. So I think he gets better every week. He becomes more and more of a threat every week, and it's just fun to see him out there because he's a great kid, and it's great to see him have some success.
Yeah, I hope that he's able to end this final season with the cherry on top in that college football playoff with Ohio State. So another player that, some interesting questions around him. So Josh Proctor has had kind of an interesting career at Ohio State. He played very early. He was very promising, made a lot of plays. He had that big injury. He came back this year. Jim Knowles really was singing his praises in the preseason as a potential All-American. We start the season He makes a mistake on one of the early plays against Notre Dame. They pull him, and then he comes back the next week and makes a lot of plays and looks like a great player again. And then suddenly he disappears again. So any insights on Josh Proctor and what's going on there? Because it does seem a lot of peaks and valleys and ebbs and flows, really for a player of his capabilities. Little disappointing. I was hoping that this would be like his year to shine. So hopefully there's not too much going on there.
Well, I think there's two words that kind of describe what's going on with Josh Proctor, and it's called Lathan Ransom. And Lathan's just playing really well right now, and it's hard for them to justify pulling him out and giving him reps when he's playing so well. He's being so responsible, doing so many good things on the defense. And I think Josh is having to adjust to kind of this off the bench kind of role right now, and I think it's hard for him because, as you said, there were high expectations from Knowles. Was talking about him being one of the best safeties, or maybe the best safety he's ever coached in a safety-driven, defense. So, no, I think it's really a tribute to Lathan Ransom. And as you mentioned, Tanner McAllister had 2 picks on Saturday. So guys are just, stepping up and making plays. And I think, Josh is just going to have to wait his time. But I don't have any doubt that when he gets the opportunity that he's going to come out there and do some good things. So I thought when he came back after the Notre Dame snub, that he played really well in very limited time. Yeah. Played very, very well. So, but I think it's just the other guys are playing better. But I think there's going to come a time when we're going to need him, and I think he'll be there. So we'll keep an eye to see Big 41 out there on the field.
Great. So going back to sort of the bigger picture here, so big win on the scoreboard. After this game, are you more confident or less confident in our ability to go out, win the Big Ten, which obviously includes beating Michigan?
Well, I'm as confident as I've ever been. I'm not buying the Michigan hype. And again, I think I want to caution people that are going to get into this comparison thing against Penn State. Penn State played up there in the Big House where they've under Franklin have just been just awful. And Penn State playing it at home against Ohio State, they've been terrific. So I think this, I fully expect this game this week to be a little closer than maybe people would expect it to be. But I think, come the end of the year, I think we're a bad matchup for Michigan, and I think, I'm as confident as I've ever been that we're gonna lay it on them. We're gonna lay it on them big time. And I think this game's been played before. We've seen how these games kind of play out, and I'm expecting a big Ohio State victory at the end of November. And but again, it starts this week with a tough game against Penn State. Got to get past it. I'll be happy with a 1-point win. Just win, survive, advance, and move on to the next week.
I agree. Penn State always plays Ohio State tough. This is their Super Bowl, right? They're going to bring out everything. I'm sure they wish this was a night whiteout game, but Fox has done us a favor here, helped out a little bit. I do think it will be close. I agree with you. In that Michigan game, I think the main thing is if we can get out to an early lead, they're really going to, I think, struggle because that team, they're built to powerhouse, run the ball, control the ball. But if we get out to an early lead on them, I'm very confident in Ohio State making things right in the world again with a big victory against Michigan. So I guess to wrap things up, the last question. So rankings came out today. Ohio State still holding in that spot. Do you want to go through maybe your top 4? I can actually tell you, I think that the top 4 you generally see, I agree with right now. Clemson had a nice win over a Syracuse team that might be a little bit overrated, but overall, I think Ohio State sitting in the top 2 makes sense with Georgia. That win against Oregon is looking more and more impressive. Tennessee obviously jumped up. So thoughts on the kind of the top 4 and where you see Ohio State within that group?
Well, I think, Ohio State, to me, if I'm being honest, I think Ohio State's the second best team in the country right now behind Georgia. I have a hard time putting them up there at number 1 when I see kind of the areas that we need to improve. But other than that, I think all the rest of those teams are pretty interchangeable. Whether you're talking about Tennessee or Michigan or Clemson or whomever, I think Ohio State and Georgia have kind of clearly distanced themselves. So it's kind of Georgia, Ohio State, and then everybody else. And I think that's really the way it's going to be. I think at the end of the year, it's going to be Georgia and Ohio State for all the marbles. And boy, that's going to be a heck of a game to see.
Well, we're getting to the fun part. The weather's getting a little cooler. We got these big games. Penn State, Michigan still on the schedule. Ohio State is undefeated. Please be sure to check out BuckeyeScoop.com. We have a lot of great insights around college football, Ohio State. It's a great community, a lot of healthy debate, particularly after this last game. Again, big victory on the scoreboard, but we talk through everything, and it's a lot of fun. I encourage you to check it out and join. So let's get ready for the final stretch of the season. And thank you very much, Nevada. It was really great speaking with you, and look forward to our next conversation.
Thanks so much.